life is not strong enough to help everyone find their piece of tranquility and happiness. Perhaps someone even loses hope. Not everyone succeeds in being happy. Not everyone manages to build their life correctly, even having an adequate means of existence. But what can be said about the lives of people who live beyond poverty? Life in countries where people don't even have the opportunity to work, and if not to have a home, at least to satisfy their hunger, has already shown what people are capable of doing to mentally escape the horror they find themselves in. They were not always willingly drawn into this horror. Not everyone has the opportunity to live differently. Not because they live the way they want, but because hope has already burned out. And when hope burns out for a nation in any country, that nation erases its own people from the geographic map. A nation that drinks, abuses drugs, or violates the law is doomed to suffering and destruction. The widespread use of illicit substances by entire populations leads to self-destruction, regardless of how individuals came to be in that situation, whether due to poverty or loss of hope. In this case, circumstances can already influence a person. The state of the country's economy, the worse it is, the more sophisticated the methods of self-annihilation become. Why self-annihilation? Drugs have always been and will continue to be considered the most dangerous substances on the planet, both today and for all eternity. People who consume them begin to experience things that a healthy person shouldn't, as humans are born with the senses they can fully utilize throughout their lives. However, drugs destroy these senses, focusing the individual's body solely on their specific effects. While a person can drink ordinary water and stop when they've had enough, with water having no negative consequences on the body, the consumption of illicit substances is entirely different. Any drug creates addiction, and it becomes nearly impossible to quit. With each action, we block our bodies from experiencing basic human feelings and processes, essentially killing ourselves. That's why this process can rightfully be called self-annihilation. And now, considering this lyrical yet disheartening introduction, let's take a look at a country like Mexico. Mexico is a country located between the United States and the countries of Central America. It is renowned for its beaches along the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico, as well as its diverse landscape. Mountainous regions, deserts, and tropical forests can be found here. Throughout the country, one can witness the ruins of ancient structures, such as the Teotihuacan and Chichen Itza from the time of the Maya civilization. Additionally, Mexico is home to many cities from the era of Spanish colonization. The vibrant character of this country could warmly resonate in everyone's hearts if it weren't for a certain background that is known, perhaps, to every person who has heard of this country even once. There are two evident problems: the criminals who can come to this country from anywhere without any fear of being caught, and among them, there can be the most notorious scoundrels, rapists, murderers. In the spring of 2014, Mexico refused to extradite the most wanted drug lord in the United States and Mexico. The leader of the Sinaloa Cartel was apprehended in February of this year by the Mexican Marine Corps units in the city of Mazatlan. Sinaloa, the Pacific Cartel, is the largest drug cartel in Mexico, also known as the Guzman Loera organization. The cartel accounts for up to 60% of all drug trafficking in the United States. It is involved in supplying cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, fentanyl, marijuana, and MDMA to the United States. This leads to the country's second problem: drugs and drug trafficking. While a criminal may be apprehended or even imprisoned, does that solve the problem itself? No. According to Wikipedia sources, this criminal organization consists of around 30,000 members, including several allies. Therefore, eradicating this extensively grown weed on Mexican soil is unlikely to be achieved. It goes without saying that these amoral killers have a track record of law violations, including drug trafficking, contract killings, extortion, money laundering, human trafficking, and illegal migration. With such a track record, it is difficult not to pay attention to this and find those responsible, especially considering that Mexico's land area is approximately 1,973,000 square kilometers. In the United States, which could fit 5 Mexicos within its territory, the crime rate is significantly lower, considering that the population of the United States is 3 times higher than that of Mexico. The already known criminal organization also included 4 other leaders who, according to Wikipedia, were either arrested or killed. However, regardless, the criminal activity associated with drug trafficking remains unabated. In fact, if we trust Wikipedia once again, Mexico is teeming with these criminal groups. Let's introduce you to some of them. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the Knights Templar Cartel, the Juarez Cartel, the Gulf Cartel, the Tijuana Cartel, the Independent Cartel of Acapulco, and many others. Each of these cartels operates within its own territory. And you know what's most interesting? Starting from December 11, 2006, Mexico has been engulfed in a drug war. The Mexican Armed Forces, Federal Police, National Guard, along with the involvement of forces from the United States, Canada, and even the Federal Police of Australia, are engaged in the fight against drug cartels. A substantial lineup of Avengers from different countries has been striving to combat this problem for decades, with actual military involvement and conflicts between the forces of good and evil are taking place. The problem of Mexico was best described by the former president of the country, Felipe Calderón. Our northern neighbor is the largest consumer of illegal substances in the world, and at the same time, the largest arms dealer in the world. Naturally, seeing the problem of a country that seeps through every crevice, even the former president himself noticed it. But as it is known, the best defense is a good offense. Besides making visible offenses against the United States, the former Mexican president couldn't do much. It is these 2 factors that fuel the Mexican drug mafia, which possesses power almost equal to that of the government. Neither the Mexican authorities nor the U.S. intelligence agencies can completely eradicate the cartels. And in the foreseeable future, a solution to this problem is not in sight. And indeed, it is true that practically every state in Mexico is controlled by one drug cartel or another. For example, the Sinaloa cartel, which remains the most significant problem in Mexico to this day, holds a vast sphere of influence in more than one state. Sinaloa, Tamaulipas, Durango, Jalisco, Sonora, Colima, Oaxaca, Morelos, Nayarit, Chihuahua, Chiapas, Guerrero, Guanajuato, Querétaro, Tlaxcala, and Puebla. That's 16 states out of a total of 32 states in Mexico, and roughly 60% of the country's territory. And this is just one of the cartels that allies with numerous other drug cartels, such as the United Cartel, La Familia Cartel, Mara Salvatrucha, and the Northern Valley Cartel, among many others. Want to stay alive? Withdraw cash so that you have the means to pay for your temporary stay in this country, if you dared to travel there in the first place. One such area where you can experience the atmosphere of insecurity and a range of negative emotions is Tepito, located in Mexico City, the capital of the country, and is situated in the state of Morelos. Life in Tepito sharply transitions from the calmer and more civilized neighborhoods to a life by its own rules. Considering that this district belongs to downtown and is surrounded by many police officers, even the police themselves have to make concessions and establish at least minimal conditions for the dealers. For example, the trade of illicit substances is confined to a specific location. Otherwise, if it were to escalate into any confrontation, it would be far from a fair fight, given the immense influence of all the drug cartels, which far outweighs that of law enforcement. This arrangement is likely made out of practicality to avoid further harm to ordinary citizens and prevent the entire city from becoming a rule by its own district. It's astonishing how criminals and their territories coexist within the same territory as Mexico's business centers and beautiful neighborhoods. It's hard to comprehend. However, finding beautiful architecture and well-maintained urban landscapes with skyscrapers in Mexico is not difficult. The influence of cartels extends to the extent that their threats can affect ordinary farmers, whom they force to cultivate opium poppy and marijuana. Manipulation through the abduction of a family member or the murder of their loved ones leads the farmers to comply with the demands of the bandits, as they have no other means to avoid such fate. Access to these fields is now restricted, not only to regular individuals, but even to journalists or other media representatives who wish to document the situation. The phones of those who manage to enter these prohibited territories can be tracked using GPS. It is known that this occurs in the state of Guerrero, which has the highest level of violence in the country. There are no heroes among ordinary workers and farmers who are forced to cultivate illicit substances. They have no choice. It's either certain death or compliance with the cartel's demands. Unfortunately, for many farmers, this is practically the only opportunity to earn more than $1 a day. And if there are farmers who grow crops for sale and sustenance, such as radishes, cabbage, or pumpkin seeds, without interference from cartel representatives, they pray that hired killers or other thugs won't come to force them to plant something according to their demands or seize their land. The arrival of cartel members can happen at any moment without wasting time on negotiations. They can simply shoot an ordinary person who owns the land. In such areas of Mexico, people who are not part of the narcotic caste are generally simple and kind. They rely on traditional remedies for healing and pray for simple things that can help their harvest. These are the kind of people who can be made to do anything if their loved ones are threatened, as that is all they have left. In addition to dangerous drug cartels, Mexico is notorious for its extensive drug trafficking operations, which primarily affect the United States. One of the most perilous substances being transported is fentanyl. Due to the highly potent opioid being smuggled into the U.S. from Mexico, drug-related mortality rates in the United States have reached record highs. According to the Wall Street Journal, despite a roughly 44% decrease in outpatient opioid prescriptions in the U.S. over an 8-year period leading up to 2020, deaths from overdoses of these substances nearly tripled during that time, and in 2021, they increased even further. Last year, the number of deaths reached around 82,000. The media highlights that these losses exceed even the casualties the U.S. suffered in the Vietnam War, where 58,200 military personnel lost their lives. Wikipedia informs us that fentanyl is a potent opioid analgesic and a strong agonist of opioid receptors. It is commonly available in citrate form. It is primarily used as an analgesic in anesthesiology, paramedicine, field medicine, and disaster medicine. Fentanyl is produced as a medicinal drug only for use in hospitals. However, on other internet resources, there is information about this substance stating that fentanyl is a dangerous opioid found in heroin, cocaine, street pills marked as Xanax, and other narcotics. Speaking of Xanax, have you watched the film Don't Look Up? The main character in the movie used these pills to cope with a severe psychological condition. Xanax, if we read the description of the medication, is an anxiolytic agent, tranquilizer, a derivative of triazolobenzodiazepine. It has anxiolytic, sedative, hypnotic, anticonvulsant, and central muscle relaxant effects. But if you thought that Xanax is the same as drinking chamomile tea, unfortunately, that's not the case. It is a very potent medication that can cause addiction and its misuse can have serious consequences. This powerful tranquilizer quickly leads to dependency and should be taken under strict medical supervision and only in the prescribed doses. Reviews of Xanax vary, but for a significant percentage of people, it can cause serious health problems and dependency, which may even be felt between prescribed doses. Similar situations can be observed in the film, where Leonardo DiCaprio's character behaves unrestrained and agitated, supposedly being treated with this medication. But no improvement in his condition is observed because Xanax is considered a narcotic medication. In real life, drug addicts chase after this medication as a cheap substitute for illicit substances. To think that Xanax contains only 0.1 milligrams of fentanyl as the active ingredient for someone to get hooked on it. In principle, fentanyl is produced as an anesthetic in surgery and prescribed to cancer patients and individuals suffering from severe pain, not for those seeking to calm their nervousness. However, it is due to fentanyl that more people in Mexico die than in car accidents. In terms of biological impact, this substance is approximately 30 to 50 times stronger than heroin. Local Mexican drug dealers, in addition to producing fentanyl in underground labs, sometimes mix it with other substances to reduce its potency, as it often leads to fatal outcomes. For many years, Mexico has been under control of illegal state representatives, bandits who have neither conscience nor any motives to halt their activities. Without hesitation, they kidnap people for their own benefit, kill them, and rob them. Regardless of the government's recognition of this problem and its attempts to combat it to the best of its ability, the problem remains unresolved and continues to escalate further. The only viable solution for the country that can be seen here is to offer ordinary people, including farmers, the opportunity to work outside the territory of Mexico by providing them refuge and employment in the fields of the United States, especially considering that these individuals possess the skill of cultivating food, which could to some extent benefit the American economy. Good-hearted Mexicans could save their own lives and those of their families, living a peaceful life far away from the opium fields, even if it means leaving their homeland that has long been dominated by despicable individuals. Civilized nations should help those in need as much as possible. Only then, with a clear conscience, can concrete walls be built around this country. If they had their way, they would already be constructing walls as high as possible, driven by blind fear, leaving people at the mercy of the scum who are insatiable in their desire for death. Despite the existing wall, which is even electrified with the intention of killing those who attempt to cross the border, there are people who blindly escape in desperation, risking their lives but holding on to the hope of freedom. Will a concrete wall stop them? I think not. But are we, in the place of the United States, willing to open our arms with open hearts for Mexico? No, we are not. Yet, isn't fleeing from such a cruel country a cry for help? Perhaps my sentiment leads towards idealism, and for Mexico's neighbors, it may seem like an unrealistic scenario. But if it resonates in my heart, doesn't that make the impossible possible?
Subscribe to our channel, hit the bell icon to receive notifications. There's much more interesting content ahead. Until next time, take care of yourself.